business, everyone. I'm Sanjita. I'm Dr. Jain's daughter, and I'm hijacking my mom's account today to answer one of the comments we got on our earlier videos. Someone asked us to show them how to make pesto, and while my mom totally could do this, it's actually definitely my recipe, and it is just as festive and red and green as the season. But it is also amazing to make at any time of the year because you can use any fresh green leafy thing alongside basil, and all of the ingredients are pretty available year-round, so you can really customize it to whatever season you're making it in. And it's really good for like light summer salads and really good for maybe heartier, sandwiches and pastas in the winter. We definitely eat pasta all year round because me and my sister love it, but whatever you want to use it for, pesto stores really well, tastes really good, and it's really healthy and really easy to make. So let me show you. The main thing about pesto is you have to get really friendly with your blender. I'm not. My mom usually helps me a lot, but let's see if today I can get it started. So I typically use almond powder. I really like it because it's very accessible, and because it's already in powder form, when you put it in the pesto, it'll become very, very creamy, and it doesn't leave any chunks, and that might be really important for you because if you don't want very many chunks in your pesto, then almond powder is a really quick and easy way to go. But we don't have that today, so I'm going to show you how to make your own. It's really quick and really easy, and it lasts quite a long time in the fridge, maybe about 3 to 4 weeks. If you don't care so much or you don't want to do extra work, and that's really valid of you, you can go ahead and just put your almonds directly in there and blend it longer, and it'll become very smooth. And if you don't care about chunks, you don't even have to blend it very long. So to make your almond powder, you're just going to take your almonds and a baking sheet, and you're going to lay them out in a thin layer. I would go for having more rather than less because, again, if you have extra, it'll just store in the fridge. But if you don't have enough, you may not have enough for the pesto that you're making. So just go ahead and make your whole baking tray full, or if you're making a lot of pesto, maybe make 2. So I'm going to just go ahead and do this much. You can see that it's in a flat layer on the baking tray. And we're going to go over to the oven. This recipe is very, very kid-friendly, so you can definitely make this with your children, but if you are a child and you're doing this by yourself, make sure you have adult supervision. The oven is going to be at 350, and you just need to let it go for about 5 minutes. And then make sure to check on them right away and turn your oven off because the nuts can burn very easily. So these are some almonds that I already roasted earlier, and I'm just going to go ahead and grind them in a spice grinder. So this part can be really fun for kids who like pushing buttons, and if you want to make sure that it's not your buttons that they're pushing, go ahead and get them involved in this step. Just make sure that they're not too close to the hot pan or the hot roasted almonds. Mine have cooled down, so I'm going ahead and just handling it directly, but you might want to either cool them down or use a spatula. I highly recommend trying to make sure that they're cool. It doesn't take very long to wait, and they'll grind a little bit better. So I filled up my spice grinder. Like I said, blenders and grinders don't typically like me, but there is a trick to this. Start on a low speed and then bring it up slowly, and you can just grind it for a long time if you want it to get really smooth. But these ones are going in a pesto into another blender, so I'm not too concerned with how they're going to turn out. So here are our roasted almonds all ground up into powder. While you have your oven on, this is a really good time to roast some garlic. It's really good if you're not as into that strong bite that you get with raw garlic. But for me, I really like that. I think it's a little bit stronger. It's a little bit more of a kick in the pesto, and it does get cooked down and a little bit softer of a flavor once you cook it for your pasta or for any sandwiches that you might be making, since it does get heated up. But you can roast your garlic, and we'll probably have a tutorial video on that at some point soon. We're going to go ahead and get started with the pesto. I'm making sun-dried tomato, special for the season, red and green. It's really important to make sure that you can open your jars, but I'm strong, so it's fine. I like to start directly with this because it'll grind better and it'll add a lot of liquid that'll help all of the leaves grind easily later. And this is the part where this video is really going to start looking different from my mom's. I don't use any measurements, and honestly for this type of recipe neither should you. It's totally up to how you think it should taste. I really like tomatoes, and I like how much this adds like a sweeter, like a little bit acidic flavor. So I'm gonna probably add a little bit extra. So one thing to note here is how much leaf material do you have? I'm using basil and the tops of carrots because those are usually very sweet and I like them a lot, but in the past I have used spinach, I have used cilantro, and it did not taste bad. Even my sister liked it and she couldn't tell. I've used pretty much any leafy green that you could use in like a salad. I've used the tops of a beetroot. You could probably use kale, but kale is a little bit bitter, so just be aware of the flavors that you're putting in here because it is raw. So you can actually try any of the leaves you're going to put in here, and if you don't like the flavor raw, then you probably should not add it. So I know how much basil I have, so I'm probably going to add about the same amount of sun-dried tomato, and I'm not too worried about the oil. Typically in pesto you use olive oil, and sun-dried tomatoes are actually preserved in olive oil, and that olive oil has soaked up a lot of that sun-dried tomato flavor. So I'm going to actually be using this olive oil, especially because we don't want it to go to waste, and there's nothing else we really do with it. So right now my blender does not have enough material in it. So what's happening is everything is getting pushed immediately to the sides and not really able to come back to the middle to be blended, which means that I just need to add a little bit more. And I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of oil as well, just so that it gets very liquidy and easy to move around. And that way it's more likely to do what I want. That's okay. I'm actually going to go ahead and get started adding just a little bit of my leaves. I'm going to start with these ones because they have a little bit of a higher water content. So if I were my mom, I would not have to do this, but I'm a little bit worried that it's not really going to blend well, and I don't want it to have like big chunky leaf pieces, so I'm going to just roughly chop my carrot tops. Again, if you're friends with your blender, you don't have to do this. Right? And we're going to see if that helped out. There you go! Pesto takes a lot of patience and a lot of oil. Olive oil is really healthy for you, believe it or not. It has a lot of restorative properties, and a lot of people will eat it raw. It's kind of not that good though, so I really recommend putting it in something like pesto. And this olive oil tastes way better than regular olive oil anyway. Everything in here is really fresh. So sun-dried tomato and kale and a lot of leafy greens have really high iron content. Carrot tops are really fresh and have a lot of that residual vitamin C. Basil is also really good for you. It also has some iron content. And because it's all raw and fresh, it has that whole food health benefit that my mom keeps talking about that you'll hear in a lot of her other videos. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape down the sides so that everything comes together a little bit better. So I'm going to let this keep going and start on the garlic. It's really up to you and your family and what you guys decide you like. So a really good way to make pesto is to just keep going ahead and adding things and tasting it. I know that we like a lot of garlic, so I'm going to go ahead and actually just start with 3 cloves. But that is quite a bit, so you might want to try just 1 to begin with, Or again, if you don't like that raw garlic flavor, you can roast it. So some people will recommend that you cut this. I'm just going to go ahead and smash it flat with the back of my knife. I'm also going to go ahead and start adding some lemon. So again, be careful with what you're adding. I have a really good intuition now because I've made this so often. But if you don't, just add like, you know, a squeeze, put it down, blend it and taste it and try again. I'm not feeling like there's enough oil. And I'm sort of running out of my sun-dried tomato oil, so I'm going to go ahead and just grab regular olive oil and add a hefty amount. Don't worry too much about adding oil or salt because these are some of the preservatives that help keep this in really, really, really good shape as you preserve it. I'm going to add the rest of my leaves just so that we use them up. So I'm going to go ahead and taste it now. It's really good, but I don't like, whoops, be careful. I don't like that it's not lemony enough. And I know that adding lemon is going to help bring out some of these natural flavors. Oh my god, it smells amazing. So there aren't really any big garlic chunks in here anymore, and I like that because I don't want big garlic chunks. You can see that it's not really coming together. It's like still a little bit like a wet paste. And so I'm gonna start adding this. A lot of people use Parmesan, and you'll notice that if you look up recipes for pesto, they actually usually use pine nuts. Pine nuts are expensive and often a little bit hard to acquire. You can use cashews, you can use almonds, you can use pretty much whatever nut you want. And I like almonds because we pretty much always have it on hand and we have almond powder most of the time. And again, I'm just scraping down the sides, being really patient. This is pretty much the recipe that taught me patience. I did not have any, but I love pesto. And I wanted to be able to make it for myself without requiring my mom every time to blend it for me. It's almost become a paste, but there's still a little bit of glossiness to it. So I'm going to add a little bit more. And if I go too far with this, I'm just going to add more oil, so it's not a big deal. So I think this is good enough. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. And again, I'm going to go ahead and taste it. Salt and pepper. Again, salt is a preservative, so don't worry about adding a lot, or if it feels like a lot. You are going to add a lot of salt. That's okay. I'm just starting with like sort of enough to dust the top of this with like snow for this season, but also for the preservative. And I'm going to add pepper because I know I haven't. My sister likes a lot of pepper, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little extra. But again, add a little taste, see how you like it. Don't worry about eating some of it while you're making it. That's the best part. I'm gonna taste it again. This is like the 5th time I've tasted it, and it's definitely not because I just want to try it. Okay, maybe it is. Honestly, still needs more salt. So I'm adding another spoonful. Just gonna start mixing it in. Yeah, there we go. Again, there's no measurements, just a lot of fun and a lot of trying different things, adding different ingredients. I'm gonna go ahead and transfer this into a small container. So what I like to do is go ahead and fill up one jar that we're gonna keep in the fridge, and that'll last about 2 weeks really well. And then fill another jar that we put in the freezer, and this freezes and stays really, really good for literally months. This is one jar, and I'll probably put the rest in my freezer jar. So earlier we made pesto, and I'm going to show you how to use it in the pasta that we're making. I already have started some water boiling, and while it's still getting hot, I am going to salt my pasta water. And you can be really generous with this. Like, don't worry about it. You're just going to bring up the boiling point of your water, and it's going to help your pasta cook better. So while that's getting ready, I'm going to start prepping my veggies. I have some frozen veggies and some fresh veggies. So I really like these carrots. They're the same carrots that we used the carrot tops of earlier. When we have bigger carrots, I like to grate them because it's easy to do that very quickly, and then the carrots don't have to spend a lot of time cooking. But these are so thin and small, and I really like them, so I'm just gonna chop them. A lot of times we use red tomato, but today we have these green tomatoes fresh from our backyard, plus a lot of cherry tomatoes. And since this is already a sun-dried tomato pesto, I'm not going to add this red tomato today. Again, my mom uses measurements, but this recipe is really easy to customize and really depends on you knowing what you and your family want to eat. So I'm not making too much pesto this morning, so I'm just going to maybe use one green tomato, chopped really finely. With incredible timing, my pasta water has just boiled. You can see that the way that I'm doing it is I'm trying to just get these piles really even. So this is about a handful of carrots. That's how many I used when I was cutting the carrot tops for my pesto. And so I'm getting about the same amount of tomato, green tomato, and cherry tomato. Here, this green tomato was a little bit bigger than I expected, so I'm going to use a little bit less cherry tomato. But together, they're about 2 handfuls. I'm going to turn on my stove, and I'm going for maybe a medium-low heat, like a 4 out of 10. And I'm just drizzling a little bit of oil. This is just avocado oil because that's what we typically use, but you can use olive oil, or you can even use the sun-dried tomato oil that we were talking about earlier. Garlic has a lot of immune boosting properties as well. So I'm going to add actually a whole other clove in, and I'm just going to dice it this time. Now, one thing that I noticed when I was getting out my pesto is that some of my garlic did not actually manage to blend down all the way. So I'm going to fish that out because nobody wants just a whole clove of garlic. And I'm going to go ahead and just put that in here as well because I don't want to toss it out, and it has a lot of really good flavor. So my pasta has finished cooking. It's been about 5 minutes. These cook very quickly. And you can see it, that there's no white stuff in the middle of the pasta, and my fork goes through it really easily. Typically you would drain this pasta water, but we still have this blender and it's pretty dirty. Pasta water contains a lot of starch and helps bind the sauce to the pasta. So I'm going to go ahead and drain just a little bit of this directly in here, and it'll help wash out all of this amazing pesto we made and get it back in our sauce. My veggies are also just about cooked. I'm going to add in my tomatoes. I don't want these to get too soggy, so I'm adding them in last. And I'm going to turn up the heat to medium and just make sure that everything gets a lot of really good color on it. So I have strained my pasta, and I'm going to put all my veggies directly into there. Pesto doesn't require a lot of cooking, so once you have all of your pasta and veggies ready, this moves very quickly. Here is the pasta water that I blended in with all my sauce, and you can see how rich and colorful it's gotten because there was a lot of pesto still stuck at the bottom of this blender. You can also use a little bit of milk if you really like it creamy. I'm going to start mixing it in. And you can see that this is a little bit too soupy. So one thing you can do is add a little bit more of your almond powder that you made earlier. Aren't you glad you saved some? Again, I'm not using cheese today, and this is going to help add a lot of creaminess and flavor. And I'm just going to mix it. I'm going to actually bring it to a bit of a, not quite boil, but just add a little bit of heat so that any excess water cooks off. Personally, I feel that this is a little bit not pesto-y enough, so I'm going to add a little bit more. And we can go ahead and try it. Salt and pepper. You may be thinking, hey, you already added so much salt in the water, in the pesto. That's true, but we didn't salt our veggies, and a little bit extra salt and pepper over top has always helped to enhance flavor. I like using these because they add slightly different flavor. Instead of regular white salt, this is sea salt, and I'm getting a little bit of different texture in the pepper because it's cracked instead of ground to a fine powder. Again, go ahead and add a little bit, try it, see how you like it. But I think this looks good. And this is how we use our pesto in one recipe. We've also used it in sandwiches and in salads, in a lot of different things. We can put it on toast in the morning, and we can put it as a snack in the evening. We can put it on pizza. So it's a super versatile sauce, and I really, really love it, and so does the rest of my family. So that's how we made pesto and pasta using that same pesto. And this smells amazing, I can tell, but you might not be able to. So let me call in a guest star on her own channel. So you saw me already try this, but I'm gonna give my mom a bite. I'm gonna get her a bite with some carrot and some corn and a lot of pasta. And you can see even someone who's used to eating pretty much only Indian food likes this very Italian, very, very fresh, delicious pesto. I'm keeping the rest of this bowl though.
So, besides Italian or Indian, this is super flavorful. I can taste the olive oil, the fragrance of the olive oil, and the vegetables, and it's like a little tangy and savory, and all those flavors are exploding in my mouth. I just love it. So.
And you saw how quick it was. Hey, that's my bowl.
Oh.
You saw how quick it was to put together. It came together in literally 10 minutes. I did all my cutting as my water was boiling, so it doesn't take any extra time. And it's really quick, it's really easy. It makes a great lunch. This actually tastes delicious cold, which is one of the only foods that I personally enjoyed at school cold. So I really hope that you let us know how you use this pesto and what you made changes to it. Maybe you added different leaves, maybe you added different nuts, maybe you added some cool add-ons or skipped the sun-dried tomato. So please comment down below and let us know how you liked it. Please like this video if you did, and subscribe so that you know when we're making more videos. Please also go ahead and hit that bell icon so that you know and get a notification every time we post a new video.
I just can't wait to get another bowl. So bye.
I don't think she's going to. Oh, I'm just kidding. It's the season of giving, so I'm definitely going to make sure everyone gets them.
Thank God.
Happy Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.